Welcome to part 2 of the previews. Today we will preview VCT Americas. We're going to do similar to what I did in my EMEA preview yesterday, so go and check that one out if you haven't already, but let's dive into it. The first thing we're going to take a look at is the PlatChat power rankings, which I actually didn't get to see PlatChat back. I didn't have time. So this is what they went with: NRG, G2, Sen, Mibr, Lev, 100 Thieves, Crew, Furia, EG, Cloud9 behind my head, then Loud, and 2G. Now, already looking at that, I know that I disagree with various parts of that. So let's dive in. So let's start off with 100 Thieves, who lost Bang, of course, to Sentinels and added Xander. Overall, I gave them a B+ for their roster moves. Now, in terms of 100 Thieves' run here, in kickoff, they do have some pretty tricky games. But surprisingly, and I actually couldn't even remember doing this, I had them beating Mibr and then Sentinels and then losing to Crew. What happened from there? Oh, then I had them losing to G2. So this is a pretty brutal run here for 100 Thieves. And if I'm not mistaken, the loser of this game plays the loser of this game, which is very likely to be G2 NRG. So 100 Thieves have it really rough here in kickoff. However, we're now going to place them on the power ranking grid. Now, if you didn't watch my EMEA one yesterday, basically I'm just going to place this team and then I'm not allowed to move it once I place them, which is very tricky when starting with a team like 100 Thieves. I have not planned this out, and this is a power ranking of right now, how I think the team is doing right now, which I guess in my pick'em, I have them doing pretty well, but I'm not sure if I fully agree with my pick'em. So yeah, 100 Thieves, where am I going to put 100 Thieves? You know what? I'm just going to slap them in 5th. Okay, next up we have Cloud9. I've actually had to change this because, of course, since I made this video, they actually got rid of Moose and added Net as well here. Now, at the time, I gave them a D just for messing everyone around. That's going to stay because I still don't like the way that they handled this offseason. And for Cloud9, I had them losing here to NRG, and Cloud9 would face the loser of this game as well. So, you know, in mind, they have Sentinels here, which I have them losing, so I have them going straight out in 2. However, just because they have a tough draw doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be that bad. So I'm going to lock Cloud9 into 8. Okay, next up we have EG, who lost Jogamo and Apoth and brought in Ye and Icy. Now for that, I gave them a C+. Now EG's draw here, they get Loud in the first game, which is perhaps a winnable game here for EG. If they did, you know, lose that, they would then play kind of whoever lost this game, which is likely to be one of 2G or Furia. So again, two winnable games potentially for EG here overall, but then I have them facing G2 and of course losing that one. So on this power ranking then, where am I going to put EG? Well, I think I'm actually going to lock them into 10th. Okay, next up Furia, who lost Nozwa and Shen, brought in Heat and Rafa, and for that, I gave them a C. Now, Furia are perhaps also on kind of the easier side of the draw here. I did actually have them losing their first game to 2G and then playing Loud and losing that one as well. And for Furia, I'm sticking with my guns. I know PlatChat kind of disagreed with that. I'm sticking with my guns, and I'm going to put them bottom of this list. Then next we have G2, who of course lost Icy and brought in Jogamo. I gave them an A+. And eventually, I did have G2 making it to Masters Bangkok. I had them losing to NRG here in kind of their first game, but then dropping to the lowest, beating MMAR, beating EG, beating 100 Thieves, beating Sen, beating Crew, and eventually ending up in the grand final where I had them losing to NRG. And so obviously G2 are going to go up there, and G2 are going to go into number 2 for me. Okay, next up we have Crew, who lost Heat and Klaus and brought in Adverso and Mazzino, and I gave them a B+. Now, in my pick'em, I did have Crew doing pretty well. I've got them beating Loud. I then had them beating 100 Thieves, then losing to NRG, and ending up in the lower final losing to G2. But you might think, oh, you had Crew finishing 3rd. You think really highly of them. But I see this more as kind of the way the draw went for me. And so that said, even though they did beat 100 Thieves in my pick'em, I'm maybe regretting putting 100 Thieves 5. I think I have to put Crew 6, but you could put them 4. I could put them 4 or 6 here, but I'm gonna stick with my guns and say 6. Because next up we have Leviatan, who have lost Aspas and Mazzino, of course, and bring in a tank and Demon 1, and I give them a C+ for that. Now, Lev in my pick'em, I had beating 2G, then losing to NRG, and then losing to Sentinels here as well. And I think overall for Leviatan, the safest place I can probably put them here, I think, is 4th. Okay, next up we got Loud, who lost Les and Sadek, brought in Vinny DJs in. I gave them a D. But Loud's run here isn't the worst, right? They start with EG, a winnable game. They then, in theory, I mean, you could see them potentially beating Crew if things went right for them as well. I had them losing that one and then playing Furia, so it is possible that they win a couple games here, but then I had them losing to Sen. And so for Loud, I think I'm gonna have to put them in 9. Okay, next up we got Mibr, who obviously made a lot of changes, the main one of course being S-Pass. I gave them an A+. However, here in the pick'em, I didn't have Mibr doing too well. I had them losing the first game to 100 Thieves, and if they do lose this game, they then will play the loser of G2 versus NRG, which in mine was G2, and I had G2 winning that as well. So perhaps early on in the season, I'm not feeling too hot about Mibr, so I guess I have to lock them into 7. Okay, next up, NRG, who made a couple changes themselves, and I give them an A-. Now, NRG, I had running through this entire thing without losing a game. I had them just, basically getting through the whole thing, undefeated, and even winning the grand final. And so it's going to come as no surprise that I'm going to have NRG up at the top. Then we have Sentinels, who of course lost Tens and Sassy to retirement, but brought in Narrate and Bang, and I gave them an A-. Now, Sentinels, I actually had losing their first game to 100 Thieves, and I know all the Sen fans are going to definitely disagree with that. I did then have them beating Cloud9, beating Loud, beating Lev, but eventually falling here in lower round 4 to G2. So despite that kind of upset pick there to 100 Thieves, I am going to put Sentinels still in 3rd place. And that just quickly leaves 2G, who brought in Gobera, and I gave an A-. And for 2G, I had them beating Furia, losing to Lev, and then ultimately losing to EG here in lower round 1. And on the power ranking, well, there's no more spaces left, so they have to be 11 or 12, and I think I am going to put them in 11. So that is my Americas preview. Go and check out my EMEA one if you haven't already, and I'll be doing Pacific tomorrow as well.